What's going on, everybody? It's Jamie,
And John,
and welcome to the A-To-Z Reseller Podcast. How's it going this week, John?
good man. It's been an interesting week, but we're finally getting some amazing weather here. The next 2 weeks is going to be like high teens or 20 degrees, barely any rain in the forecast. Out playing ball and stuff. So I mean, yeah, you know what? It feels like summer, and I'm here for it.
Yeah, it's pretty nice. We kind of get like so it's very bipolar in Canada, or sorry, not Canada, but in Ontario, because we'll get the extreme weather. We've already had days that were like yesterday was like mid 20s. I think at one point it was at 24, but then it was like 13 the next day. So it's not consistent, but we've been for the last month or so highs and lows. I think it was around April when we had the end of April was like the end of the nasty weather for us, I believe, here.
Okay. Yeah. It's interesting because out here in Nova Scotia, especially here on the west coast or the western part of Nova Scotia where I am, like it's such an extreme difference between day and night. So we had yesterday, I think we hit 22 degrees, and then there was a frost warning for overnight. So it's
Yeah,
like, what's going on?
yeah, that's
Welcome to
crazy.
Canada, folks.
Yeah, not good for any of the farmers trying to get stuff in early, right? Worrying about frost. Um, yeah, so we kind of talked a little bit today earlier about maybe you had something happen this week. Did somebody kind of catch you off guard in the thrift store, or maybe just out in public?
Yeah. So, well, I just uploaded a video. I don't even know what day it is. Yesterday, I guess on Tuesday. It was just like a little extra video where I was like doing a little day in the life thrifting vid, and I was in one of my regular thrift stores that I go in, hit up some clothing and whatever. And someone commented, she's like, "Oh, hey, I thought that was you. I thought that was you. I thought I recognized you." And then made a comment about the store itself, but yeah, it was kind of cool because like that's the second time that's happened where someone has recognized me and either put it in a video in the comments, or actually about a month ago, maybe 2 months ago, I was in a thrift store in my old town about an hour and a half away from me, and this guy comes up and he's like, "Hey, John, how's it going?" I'm like, "I don't know who you are,"
Mhm.
but it's just kind of cool when it happens. I welcome it. I think it's awesome if anybody ever sees me out and they want to say hi, like feel free. You know, forgive the confused look on my face where I'm figuring out, am I supposed to know who you are? Like, put me out of my misery quickly and please tell me who you are. But yeah, I think it's fun.
Yeah, I've been caught the same way where I'm not sure if I forgot the face and just forgot the person, or somebody knows you, which is interesting. I think being where I am and that I do go into London, like London has like 100,000 people in it, and then the cities I'm going in are pretty big cities. You're in such a smaller area, so
Yeah.
someone to like notice you is and we both, neither one of us have big channels, but I think one of the things about reselling, especially Canadian reselling on YouTube, is there's not a lot of us. So somebody who's probably in the thrift store doing the same type of thing as you potentially might have seen you before online if they were looking.
Yeah, exactly. Which I think is really cool. I mean, um, I've seen other YouTubers who are like, they're kind of weird about it or whatever. For whatever reason, they just, they're not social people. Like, hey, I'm an introvert. You're an introvert. We've talked about this before. But I feel like even meeting somebody in person, if it's through this online thing, which is like, is it real? It's different. I don't mind that. I think that's just fine. Like even as an introvert, I'm like always welcome to, say hi to somebody because I just think it's cool. Like it's not like, oh, I feel like a celebrity because my 700 and some subscriber channel got someone who recognized me. But it's just interesting to know that there are people who are potentially out there, doing a similar thing, or like in the case of the guy that did actually say hi to me a couple months ago. I mean, he had mentioned that he'd learned about a couple of things and started selling a couple of things from my very small channel. And that's what it's all about for me. Like, that's why I'm starting to, wanted to start doing this, was to kind of give back a little bit to the very few resellers that seem to be doing this in Canada before I got on board.
Yeah, oh for sure. I think it's a good mindset to have too, right? Like you said, I'm definitely not a super social person, but when anybody approaches me, I'm always more than happy to talk to them about it. And I've actually not had any negative response either, which I've had somebody who I consider a friend now, Gerald, who's also in the Facebook group we have there, Canada Reseller A. He'd always make little comments at me, but I thought he was like trying to call me like Hollywood. He was like busting my chops, and then I found out later that his personality is just like that, right? He's kind of joking around, but at first I'm like, oh man, like this guy does not like me, and we're at the bins. It just felt awkward, and then when I realized he's joking around, and you know, he's a really nice guy, it was pretty cool.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's the thing. I mean, so much is lost in context in the written word. So it's always good to see people in person and kind of get to know them a little better, or even like in a group like that. I think that group's great. Anybody who isn't already joined, feel free. The link should probably be down below in the YouTube description. Go take a look. There's good info in there, and it's growing pretty fast too.
Yeah. Well, this guy was busting my chops in person, though. That was what I found interesting.
Oh, okay.
I ran into him a few times at the Goodwill bins and at Stallion Express. And I was dropping stuff off at Stallion Express one day, and he says to me, I'm sure Gerald will think this is funny if he watches it anyway. He's like, oh, do you have a good sales week? He's like, never mind. I'll just watch the video. I'll see what you sold. Stuff like that. Just little jabs. And I'm like,
nice.
I thought it was funny, but I'm like, does this guy like me or not like me? I couldn't really read him, but wound up being pretty decent friends. So it's pretty cool. Really nice guy. Anyway, so we wanted to talk about a few comments and try to maybe just, we've talked about some of this stuff before, but maybe we could just revisit some comments that we've had. We've had a lot of comments on the channel here, but a lot of them seem to be just like, encouraging words. The podcast is great. Maybe giving their 2 cents on something we talked about, but we have had a few questions I thought we could go back and answer.
Yeah, sure. And, I think we've got some good ones like we talked about. We've kind of touched on these a little bit, but you know what? This stuff constantly comes up, and there's always, like my take on things changes constantly too. So it's good to revisit some of these things, even if it, has been answered, a month or two ago or something. So, all right, we have first, there's kind of like a 2 or 3 part question here from RKMW6849. I don't know what your name is, but we'll call you RK. RK asks, any thoughts on ending listings and selling similar on eBay to refresh them? Do you do it? And if so, what kind of results have you seen? What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's been great results, especially with old inventory. I mean, I would go a little bit further. If I was going to end and sell similar, I might make sure that the price that I had it listed for is correct. I might go back to the item specifics and add things that maybe I overlooked, and maybe just give it a little refresh, or maybe even just jumble around the main picture. Maybe take one of the other pictures that are nice, throw it up there. But yeah, I've had really good luck with you do that, and something that's been listed for a long time all of a sudden sells, and you haven't done a whole lot besides just end it and sell similar and maybe give it a little fine tune. But it's been good.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I feel the same way. I would say that, obviously I don't have this huge store. I'm not, doing $100,000 revenue a year or whatever, but like it's happened enough that it's more than coincidence, in my opinion, where, you do this, you end it, you sell similar, and you tweak things a little bit. That's important too. Like, the little boost in the algorithm's fine, but you still need a quality listing. So that is important to look at, especially if it's something older. But I find like, man, I don't know, 25% of the time, maybe up to like a third of the time, that item sells within the next 2 weeks or so. Like, I think it just, for whatever reason, it missed its initial opportunity, like, window, and then kind of got lost down in the depths of the algorithm. And then you bring it back to the forefront. And if it's a good listing that someone's looking for right now, it's going to sell just like, you list something new. I mean, probably a percentage of your new stuff sells within a couple of weeks. And it's the same kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely agree.
Yeah. All right. Well, he had a second question as well. Do you guys use promoted listings?
Yeah, I do. I'm pretty sure you do as well. I think you might even promote higher than me. So I do 2%, which is the minimum. I always did 1% prior to that. Would I promote more? Probably, but I also like sending out offers. So I don't want to promote too much because it eats into the profit too much. But yeah, I think promoting listings makes sense because at least you're going to be competitive with anybody who's willing to promote.
Yeah, no, I'm with you there as well. And I mean, obviously, you know, part of me is like, stupid fee bay. I don't want to be giving you even more. But, the reality is like, hey, it's a very small amount. Like I do 3% across the board. That's still a very, very small amount. I mean, of your overall to have that leg up and to be showing up in the search results above any non-promoted listings. Um, there are obvious issues with the whole system, but I mean, overall, I think it's worthwhile doing. I would, for myself personally, probably never want to be trying to resell something where that 3% would actually hurt me, because then I'm either selling something that's just too cheap and not worth it, or I've done something wrong. If I feel like that 3% is hurting me too much, then I feel like I've probably done something wrong or made a bad decision somewhere along the way. I have increased my rate sometime on select items. Like sometimes I'll go in and with the and sell similar. Like if I've got something that's a year old but now it's out of season, like if I was to go in and relist an old item right now but it's a winter jacket, I might even boost that up to 5 or 7% because I just want that seen. I want that to go. And at this point, I'd be happy making a little money off of it and just having it out of my way. So I don't know if it really makes a huge difference to go very high. I think promoting a higher percentage really only beats the other people who are like promoting as well and promoting. Like, so you have a very limited competition in those scenarios where you're getting up into the 5, 7, 10%. Like then you're duking it out between just a few of you, really. So I don't really see that as being worth it. I mean, I think most people at least look at like a few listings before they just buy the first one. Maybe not. If I miss out on those, fine.
Yeah, I do see sometimes suggested because it'll tell you what it thinks you should promote at. A lot of times it is around the 12% these days. I'm like, I don't think I would do that unless, I mean, I've heard other people say that they'll like rate increase their price if they're doing that to try to make up for it. But I don't know. eBay's making all these weird changes. Have you seen the new one where they said, I don't know if it's affected us in Canada yet or not. I've just heard different YouTubers talk about it, where somebody can buy the item, but then if they found it cheaper, they can cancel the order, or it'll give you the option, I believe, to match. So you as a seller could match their cheaper price. I don't
Yeah.
like that for a lot of reasons, but I mean, so that makes it harder to increase your price if eBay's starting to put things like that in place.
Yeah, they're basically trying to promote, a kind of customer centric price match. I mean, look, if this was the 1990s and we were going into a grocery store and saying like, "Hey, grocery store B has this on for 99 cents. Would you guys match that? Your price is $1.29." That's one thing, but this is 2024. If you don't have enough money to go online and buy stuff that you need to be getting into the weeds like this, I don't know. It's just I don't like it. It I don't use this word often, but it actually makes me feel icky to know that eBay is going down this kind of a path because it just seems weird. I don't get it. I don't like it.
I don't like it either. I mean, I feel like before this even needs to be a thing, why don't buyers have to just pay when they purchase the item to begin with? Not commit to buy it. Now search for a better price and
Yeah,
then try to cancel the order because I found it cheaper somewhere else. Seems
exactly.
totally backwards for sure.
Yeah. There's
Um,
enough people out there sending out like offers to 4 or 5 different people and then just asking to cancel all the ones that weren't the best price. And
yeah,
that is just a huge pain in the behind. And eBay actually encouraging that kind of behavior is terrible.
yeah. Yeah, I agree. I know we do have a couple more comments we want to get into, but I thought we might as well throw in a sale of the week before we get into the last
Oh,
couple of comments here. Do you have one
yes,
in
yes.
mind?
You go first because I did have one in mind, and wow, my brain is drawing a blank because I
Well,
just went on an eBay rant. So
yeah,
let me open up my sheet and remind myself what it was.
yeah, no problem. Yeah, I sort of just threw that at you. Yeah, so I had it'll be on. I think by the time this comes out, I think it'll already be on my What Sold video. But it was a hockey jersey. It was a 2010 Canadian Olympics jersey. I got it at Salvation Army with a coupon, but one of the cool things about it was it happened to be one of the ones something I didn't find. I went there, bumped into my buddy Derek and his wife, and they were, we started chatting, and I'm like, hey, what did you get? And the next thing you know, he's like, yeah, I don't know about this Niedermeyer jersey, 2010 Olympics jersey. I'm like, what don't you know about it? He's like, I think he was concerned maybe that maybe it wasn't authentic. I showed him the things on it that I believed was authentic. I think it had like the fighting strap on it. The stitching was good. The coloring was good. It looked to have the right age for a 2010 jersey. He's like, oh, I'll just take it. Like, you can have it. I'm like, I felt guilty taking it from him. So I know in the what sold video, it sold for $101. I paid probably less than 20. In my what sold video, I said, hey, I actually gave Derek a little shout out and said, hey, I definitely owe you a beer. Thanks for the jersey. Always,
Nice.
it's always nice when somebody wants to give you something, but I at the same time, I felt kind of bad that that he didn't
Yeah,
want to take the chance on himself. But I kind of understand it. I know some people don't like to sell jerseys, or they're afraid they're not authentic.
yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. But yeah, I mean, it's one of those situations where he made a decision for himself, and I'm sure he doesn't feel bad about it. You made a good decision, obviously, and no, it's a good sale. So, yeah,
Yeah.
so shout out to Derek, keeping my podcast partner in business here.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay. I remember what I was going to talk about, and it's not like it's this huge sale or anything, but it was an item that I just bought it without comping it because I just knew it would sell fine. But when I got home and I was getting ready to like figure out how much it should go for, I realized that on eBay it seemed like it had kind of low, not low, but like $35-$40 kind of value. It seemed like that's what it was selling for. Lots listed for that range. It's like, oh, this is really weird. I expected it would be more. And it was a pair of New with Tags Spanx, like kind of cargo pants. They were in a women's small. New with Tags Spanx, I was expecting more than that. It's a good selling brand. I mean, I've sold a pair of their jeggings for like $100 before new. But eBay, that's what it was going to go for on eBay. So I ended up listing it for 35 plus shipping on eBay. But over on Poshmark, I realized not only are there just not good results showing up when I search for it there, but also Poshmark itself is recommending that I price in this kind of price range, which was significantly higher. So I ended up pricing it for, I think $50 on Poshmark. Someone sent me, no, it was, I had it listed for 66 and someone offered me 50. And so that means I cleared 40. So it was just one of these weird things where if it would have sold on eBay, I'd have made like 15 bucks. But it sold on Poshmark for almost twice as much, and I ended up making like $25-$30 out of it. So it's just it was a good reminder to, like, I use eBay as my tool to like comp things and get a good idea of what things are worth, but it doesn't mean that you can't get more for it on other platforms, because obviously Poshmark Canada is a whole different market. Like, that's yeah. So anyway, it was a cool sale for that reason for me.
Yeah, I think that's a good thing to point out too, because you're right. Like, just because I think as a reselling community in general, I think for the most part, everybody does do the research on eBay first, but that doesn't mean everything. It just is a good starting point, right? Yeah, I find that similar sometimes on Poshmark. Things will get listed a little bit higher, and then even one step further, going on Poshmark, the U.S. Poshmark, sometimes things don't hold the same value in the U.S. or vice versa. They can go up and down like crazy. So even though you have a good starting point when you're comping from eBay, you should definitely do that extra little bit of research when you do go to list it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, otherwise you're just kind of leaving money on the table. So, yeah. All right. What do you think? Get back into another question?
Yeah, I'm not sure that we finished the first question. That after I looked back, I see there was a Vero question there at the end of it
Oh,
too.
yeah. Well, yeah, I was going to get into to RK's last thing there about Vero, and he or she, I don't know. They mention something about 3 pairs of Vionics. I actually don't know what that is, but there's 3 pairs of Vionics in their death pile. Have we encountered any Vero problems? What do you think?
Yeah. So Vionics is a high end or higher end women's. Actually, I think they're women's and men's, but it's basically shoes.
Oh,
I've sold a bunch of the shoes and like flip flops and like that type of shoe. Um, I've heard that they can be an issue with Vero on eBay. I have sold them on eBay. I've never had any issue ever on Poshmark selling them. So if you're afraid of the Vero on eBay, definitely list them on Poshmark because you shouldn't have a problem over there. As far as Veros go, I've really only had issue with Beachbody personally. I had listed like just one of the Beachbody DVDs. I think it might have been Not Insanity. What was the other big one? P90X. A
Oh
long
yeah, yeah.
time ago. I had a big set. I listed it. It got pulled down, and then I realized after that shouldn't be on, or they don't want it to be on eBay because there's too many counterfeits. If you put Velcro, you'll get a Vero Velcro. And then I had a video where I talked about Scotty Cameron putters that got pulled down from for the Vero program as well, which were very expensive putters, which I wound up taking to play it against sports and getting a fraction of the price, but still made money on. So yeah, I mean, Veros are a real thing. There's not really a complete list to look anywhere. You just got to be careful, essentially. And if you do get a Vero strike for something, do not relist it. Just that'd be the smartest thing.
Yeah, yeah. Good point. Good point. I haven't had any Veros, and I think it's, it's not it's not because I know what to look out for, because I literally have no idea where to even figure out. Like, I know there's a little list somewhere on the eBay site, but like, I don't know if that actually, I mean, do you think eBay is just updating that constantly and giving us the best information? Probably not. The only thing that I've had come up once was I did use the word Velcro. And again, they did just delist that. And so, but there wasn't a good reason for it. Like, I didn't get a strike against my account or anything. It was just delisted, and it wasn't really explained to me very well. So I called them and asked them like why that happened. And they said, oh, because Velcro is actually a brand. You have to use like hook and loop or something in your description.
Yeah.
Like, okay, so that's good to know. The only other time I've had listings get taken down, and it's not for Vero, was once I had a pair of pants that were supposed to be like insect repellent pants or whatever. And they just AI scanned them, obviously, took them down because they thought that I needed some kind of like incesticide or insecticide. Incesticide is the Nirvana album. The insecticide, like pesticide number or something for the EPA. And I'm like, this is a pair of pants. Like, this is ridiculous. So anyway, I just got around that. During the pandemic, I had listed an N64 in games. And because I used the word COVID in my description,
Okay.
that was taken down. They said I was trying to sell. It was taken down for either, the reasoning was either like trying to price gouge or something, or unsupported item or something. And I think it was, something like in my description, I probably just wrote like, hey, it's been all sanitized and cleaned up really well, due to COVID, blah, blah, blah. But obviously it got scanned and they thought I was trying to like sell hand sanitizer for $150 or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, no Veros, but I thought I'd point those out as well. Yeah, I've never heard of Vionics though, so that's good to know. You could sell them on Poshmark though, I bet.
Yeah, they sell good on Poshmark. Yeah.
Yep.
And it is just a higher brand, higher end shoe. Like now,
Yeah.
the more I think about it, I've seen definitely like shoes, sandals, like casual stuff. But yeah, they're definitely a good selling brand. It's just for whatever reason, I'm not even sure. Maybe like what the issue was. This is a few years ago. I remember, I believe might have been like a Rally Roots video where they were the ones that I had heard from that said that they were potentially a Vero product, but so I haven't had any issue ever selling them, but I have heard that.
Cool. All right. Well, hey, thanks to RKMW6849 for those questions. Appreciate that. I know it was a little while ago since that comment was left, but definitely, definitely good question for this kind of a video. All right, we got another one from Jason, and I know that I did reply to this on the podcast video itself in the comments before, but I'm in this exact same predicament again today as we speak. So it's a good time to revisit this because I think it is ever changing. Jason asks, John, is it better to sell video games with the console or piece out the games separately? Do the games help sell the console quicker, but for less money than selling them separately? And I think my initial response to him was, look, if you got a bunch of cheap games that's going to help move a console, that's probably your way to go. If you've got, games that are worth a lot of money, but you're bundling them together, then yeah, people are probably going to be expecting a little bit of a deal. You buy a console and 10 games, you're probably not looking to pay exact market value as if you're, buying everything individually. But right now I've got a Nintendo, like the original NES, and 21 games that I recently bought on Poshmark with some credits, some free credits from winning the Live It or List It challenge. And so I bought it there so that I could actually sell it on eBay and make some money. And so the console itself is really finicky. A lot of those old NES consoles, like, you'll get the blinking light, and sometimes the pins need to be replaced, and it's really finicky. I know the games all work because I was able to test them. Most of them started working on that console. Some of them I did have to test over on my personal console. So I know they all work, but now I'm just in this like predicament of, do I sell this console that does technically work, just needs a little extra TLC to get the games working, with a few games, and make like a nice bundle there and then sell the rest of them individually? Or do I just sell all the games individually and sell this console almost like for parts, even though it kind of works? And so it's also situational. I think it changes, every single time, but I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so my first thought is there's no way in hell that I would change the board. I'm not never going to do that for sure. I don't know if you've ever tried to do one yourself.
I have.
Yeah, it seems easy enough when you watch a YouTube video, but I don't know, man. Like, it's just not something I'm good with. So, yeah, right there, I would say parts and repair for the system, especially if it's questionable. If there's a big enough question where somebody uses it for a couple days and then it doesn't work the next day, and there's a big window now with return, everything with eBay for sure. So I wouldn't even bother selling that as working unless it was fixed. Yeah, the games are so weird because that system, one game is worth a ton of money, and then there's lots of $5, $8, $10 games.
Yeah.
So I would lot those cheap games up just to move them. And then I don't know, are there any really valuable ones there?
There's a couple that are like, $40 kind of range, which
Yeah,
isn't bad. So like Mega Man 2, for example, I'll sell that one individually. That's a good game. Um, but most of them are in that like 10 to 20 range.
yeah. That's what's it's. I guess what would your cutoff be for an individual sale of something like that? What's the minimum you would want?
I mean, really, I don't like to list anything under $15,
Yeah,
just because by the time, especially if it sells in Canada, because then you're paying the fees on the shipping and the taxes as well. Like, I sold something for $15 earlier today, and after the fees, I realized, man, I paid $7 in fees. Like, that's a huge percentage, right? So that's probably my cutoff. But yeah, I'm not 100% sure. I might do marketplace as well for that kind of stuff.
yeah. That's not a bad way to go either. At least on marketplace with the system too, you could say to somebody easier. Hey, this does work. You could
Yeah,
keep it the way it is, and it's going to work, but it's going to be like a little finicky. Or if you want to replace this board, you could say, people know, right? Like there's lots of
yeah,
people who might look at that and say, yeah, I'd buy the board and I'd have a nice working system. Yeah, marketplace might be the way to go, especially with the console part.
yeah, yeah. I think you're right there. Hmm. Well, I got some more thought on that one before I make any solid decisions, but it's a good question from Jason, and I think it really depends because it's going to depend on what games you have, how well your console works, obviously.
Yeah,
But typically I do, like, especially with Wii's, because the Wii's just sell like hotcakes. I do typically just buy up any cheap Wii games and then make a bundle, console and 5 games, console and 10 games, and it just doesn't matter because that particular console is so like family oriented, you can have a bunch of like crappy kind of filler games, and that's going to move consoles.
Yeah, oh, yeah, for sure it will.
All right, we got another question here. This one is from Edward Morris. And he says, hey guys, another great one. Do you guys have any tips for people starting out, such as getting sales when you're restricted to 10 listings? What did you guys do? There is a second part of that, but
Yeah.
what do you think you do when there's only 10 listings?
Well, I would say after you make, well, I'd be very particular on what I listed for sure, right? You want to list things that you think are going to sell quickly, and you probably have to be realistic and take offers maybe even that you don't want to get started. So you're going to sell stuff a little cheaper. But I know myself, after I sold maybe 1 or 2 items, I contacted eBay and said, hey, is there any way we can increase this? I just explained my intentions and whatever. I already made a sale. So once you've already made a sale and things went well, then you're kind of in the driver's seat where you can say, hey, are you guys willing to work with me? And I don't think there's very many occasions where they probably wouldn't grant you more listings, right? Because they can see that you're eager to sell, that you've already sold something, and it's a good thing. If you sold something and it was a headache right off the bat and you got negative feedback, right, then maybe not. But that's what I would do. I'd reach out and just ask, if they'd be willing to up your numbers. They're not going to release your money any faster when you start, but they want you to list more, for sure they do.
Yeah, no, that's exactly what my answer would have been to that, because if I recall correctly, that's exactly how it went for me as well. I think, when I started out, I could only list a few things. And so I listed maybe like 5 video games or something that probably were worth about $50 a piece. And you got it right there at the beginning where you said, you might need to take a little lower offers. I mean, we always talk about how new accounts, like, that kind of concerns us as a seller. Someone with 0 feedback or 1 feedback buys your item, like, oh no, are they going to scam me? Are they going to, cause problems? No different with sellers. Like, I'm a little bit leery when I'm buying from somebody who has a very small amount of feedback. So, but if that person's willing to work with me and give me a good deal, I'm a little bit more likely to give them a shot. And I know that as a buyer on eBay, you have so many protections, and it's probably not a huge deal anyway. But it's still a headache if you buy from somebody new, and they mess you up, or they just cause problems. So yeah, contacting eBay for sure. I think after I made a couple of sales, it might have been that actually even within the first month of making just a handful of sales, they might have even offered me more listings. And I might not have even had to contact them. I know that at this point, I don't even remember what the numbers are, but at this point, without asking for an increase, I've got so much available right now that I could never fill it. Like, it's something like 6,000 listings a month for like $90,000 or something, like, per month. I couldn't fill those numbers anyway. So yeah, starting off's a little bit slow maybe, but it'll quickly grow, and do the right thing, have a couple good sales. There won't be any issues.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Okay, I guess part 2 of that was like, what did you guys do? I guess we kind of already answered that. But he does ask, is it reasonable to sell things that you may not have a lot of knowledge on, but have a good sell-through rate, like video games, for example? Even if you just break even, but get that eBay train moving. So I think we did kind of answer that, where it's like, you just want to get things moving and get some momentum. And of course, eBay wants you to sell more, because the more you sell, the more money they make. That's their entire platform. So
Yeah, I don't think you should be afraid of selling things that you don't know a lot about, but you shouldn't pretend that you know a lot of things about it either, right? If I'm going to sell a camera and I'm saying that it's tested, but I didn't really test it, you're probably going to get bit in the butt, right? So if you don't know, you could say untested, as is, or explain condition to the best of your ability. The worst thing you can do is say that something's perfect, or that you've tested something you haven't tested. If you don't know, I don't think it's a problem to sell it. You just have to be honest about the way you're presenting it as the seller.
definitely, yeah. If there's any uncertainty at all, under promise and over deliver. That's the way to go. And yeah, to your point there about like there's no problem with selling things you don't know a lot about. I mean, look, I mostly sell women's clothing. Do you think that when I started doing that, I knew anything about women's clothing? No, hell no. But it was an opportunity for me because the inventory was there. So it's like, all right, well, I can make money doing this. I don't know much about it now, but let's just do it. And obviously you learn as you go. And now all of a sudden I do know a lot about women's clothing, which is not something I'd ever thought I'd be able to say, but here we are. Um, but yeah, that's a good question, and I think it's all about momentum. And I think when we talk about eBay, especially, and Poshmark's a little bit the same, but very different as well. But like I think with eBay, that is the main recipe for success there in my experience so far is just keeping that momentum going and just staying favored in that algorithm, because when you stop and just let those gears stop for a while, it takes so long for things to get going again. And that's why I list every day. Or if I don't have something to list, I'm going back and ending 3 listings that are older and selling similar just to keep that momentum.
Yeah, yeah, that's exactly it. Keeping everything rolling and current, because as soon as you do take your foot off the gas, you'll notice a lot of things, slow down as well, right?
Yeah.
I did want to ask you a question though. I just had something happen that was a first for me, and maybe this has happened to you, or maybe somebody watching can relate on something similar. It's a Poshmark thing. Okay, so I'd sold a women's bathing suit. So we're talking about women's clothing. That's why it sort of popped into my head.
My special.
Women's, yeah, yeah, women women's bathing suit. Um, I pulled it on a video. I shipped it on a video. I remember because I couldn't pronounce the name of the city. It was like some city in British Columbia. I'm sure I butchered it. Um, and I shipped it out. I remember shipping it out on video. I remember dropping my orders off at Canada Post. I watched her scan everything. I didn't take some people like to take the little receipt that shows everything. Went home. Everything's been fine. I've got emails saying all these things have shipped out. For some reason, this bathing suit isn't moving. I got a final notice today for the bathing suit. So I don't know what happened there. I'm going to go back tomorrow and ask at the Canada Post if maybe they still have it and something actually happened to the package. I'm in a unique situation where I have like 3 or 4 of these bathing suits. So I've packaged up another one because I have it, reprinted the same label, and my plan is to take it to Canada Post and say, hey, like I've actually already dropped this one thing off here.
Hmm.
I don't know if my label will even scan. Maybe there's a problem with the actual label. I've never had an issue with Poshmark with the label ever. Have you? And have you ever? I mean, probably you wouldn't have multiples of an item to go try to ship it again. But up until that
Well,
point, has that happened?
that has not happened to me on Poshmark in that same way, but um, that's interesting. So, I mean, I would think just a couple of thoughts as you're telling me about the story. The first thing that popped in my head is that Poshmark is such a better platform as far as respecting sellers that I feel like if you showed them, your video and said, hey, like you can see I did this,
Yeah.
they would probably cover you. You know what I mean? Like I think they would take your side on it at least. I don't know. I don't know that for sure, but that was my initial thought. So I just want to throw that out there because I feel like Poshmark would just do the right thing. But also it made me think maybe I should be waiting and getting the scan receipts and stuff, because honestly, I never do. I,
Nope.
I drop off sometimes 20, 30 things and I just hand them over to Karen, my Canada Post worker, who, we chatted up and stuff. And just like, okay, yeah, I don't need a receipt. This is all prepaid. You guys are good. Um, I don't know. I don't really know what to do there.
But that's because we're both from. So my local Canada Post is a small town Canada Post, probably much like yours.
Yeah.
I know the people who work there. Sometimes I'm there way too long because we're chatting, right? Like it's a small town. When I go into London or into a bigger city, it's just handed over. There's not really much talking.
Yeah.
Stallion Express, they don't do that at all. There's just a big blue bin. You dump all your stuff in there, and if you don't trust them, I guess you don't leave it because they don't scan it for you, right?
Mm, yeah, I
Um,
gotcha.
But yeah, I mean, that's the thing. That's the way I feel too with my local Canada Post. When I have a legitimate Canada Post label that's going to Canada Post,
Mm.
I've never had an issue. Plus, I trust them. Like I don't know. It's just such a weird thing. I'm going to obviously probably on my channel or maybe even here we'll discuss what happens with it. But
Yeah.
it's just a weird one because I've never really had a problem with a label before, unless it has
Yeah.
actually happened at Canada Post itself.
Yeah, that's really strange because like I'm pretty sure since like payment and labels are all automatic as well through Poshmark, that if there was an issue with the address, for example, it wouldn't even process the label, because I'm pretty sure that they must be integrated with Canada Post in some capacity to at least verify that that's a good address before they even before you can even have it in the system to have like labels automatically printed out for it. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
there must be some kind of address verification thing. So like, I don't even think it could be an issue with the label. That's really weird. The only things that I would ever, and if this ever does happen to me, I would hope that it happens on some Boston Marathon tees that I've picked up, because that's the only thing I ever have multiples of. Sometimes my local shop, because they get so much from the New England area for their inventory, sometimes I'll walk out of there with like 10 of the exact same, Boston Marathon 2023 half marathon men's extra large tee or something, all new with tags, like just old stock that didn't sell. But yeah, that's weird. Well, at least you do have a backup though. I mean, would you be out like if you take it there and they scan it and it scans fine, you get the scan receipt, everything's good to go, I mean, would you be taking a big loss if you had to send out a second one?
Nope. No, I've got it packed and ready. And I honestly, in this situation, I kind of care more about the buyer getting it because they bought it from me. And I have multiples and I've made plenty of money from that entire buy. So the fact that it didn't get shipped out, my only thought is I also do one by one. So one at a time. So if I'm shipping Poshmark, I don't batch orders and print a whole bunch of labels at once. I pick the order, print the label, put it on there, complete that order, right?
Yeah.
And I see lots of people who will do like batch labels and they'll print 20 labels off and then try to match them up and whatever. So yeah, it's definitely not a matter either of like I put the wrong label on something, because even in my video, like I say what it is and where it's going, and I'm looking at the label. So it's just weird. I've just never had that before. So I thought it'd be kind of fun to chat about.
Yeah. If anybody has had something like that happen, please let us know, because that one blows my mind a little bit.
So I feel like you guys are going to get the Scooby-Doo ending where they pull the sheets off the ghost to see who the real culprit is. Well, guess what? The problem was me. I'm not surprised by this, but when I was thinking about it and trying to figure out what happened, I wasn't really putting the blame on myself. But the truth was, when I packed all these orders, I took my Canada Post parcel, so my Poshmark order, and it accidentally went in with my Stallion Express stuff. So when you drop off a regular Canada Post parcel to Stallion Express, they can't scan it. It just sits there. So when I went today to drop off my next batch of mail, so like when I'm recording this clip here, it's actually Thursday. So I was there Monday. I went back Thursday to drop my mail off again. And the guy working there said, "Hey, I was hoping to see you." And he picks up this package. He's like, "You can't drop this off here. This has to go to Canada Post." And I'm like, "Ugh." So in the car, I had the other bathing suits, which I was going to take to Canada Post and then ask them if they had the other one, but I was the problem, right? So I thought I'd share that with you guys. I wasn't definitely trying to blame anybody else or anything like that. I guess I did realize it could have been my own fault, and I probably thought to some extent it was, but I didn't know what I did wrong. So what I did wrong is I dropped a regular Canada Post parcel off at Stallion Express, and they can't scan it or do anything. Very nice of the gentleman to like save it for me, wait for me to come back in and say, "Hey, we have this for you." He could have did anything. He could have discarded it. He could have opened it, kept it for himself. Not that I think that they're like that at all, but really he had no obligation, I wouldn't think, to like get it back to me, because, I wasn't supposed to drop it off there in the first place. Anyways, I thought I'd share that with you guys. It was a really great episode, I thought, with John this week. I like this format. where we're answering questions from you guys. I'm sure if you guys leave comments down below, we will do something like this again in the near future. But we will see you guys real soon.